Welcome to Behind the Badge. I'm your host, Chief David Molloy, Director of Public Safety for the City of Novi. And I'm very honored to be joined here today. We have Scott Schuelke from the Autism Safety Specialist with the Autism Alliance of Michigan and Sergeant Mark Boody from the Novi Police Department. Gentlemen, welcome to Behind the Badge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you guys both taking time. Scott, I know you just recently completed an autism awareness training at the City of Novi earlier this afternoon, and you're probably going to be doing another one tonight. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, your education, and what's brought you to what you're teaching here today?
Okay, I'm a retired sergeant from the Lansing Police Department. I now work for the Autism Alliance of Michigan, and I conduct safety trainings around the state for police, fire, EMS, educators, families, and community members. The trainings we put on teach the police officers, the firefighters, to help identify people with autism, how to possibly communicate with them and interact with them. We also teach them to always work with their family member and care provider. Nobody knows them better than that person, than that family member or care provider. So we travel all over the state. We've trained businesses such as Henry Ford Museum, the Detroit Zoo. We're currently working with Metro Airport staff in Wayne County on a new On Board with Autism program for families with autism.
Excellent, excellent. And that's great that you're able to get that word out. You got to be traveling, putting a lot of miles on the car.
Yep, we're traveling everywhere. Next week, I think I go from Detroit to Sault Ste. Marie in 2 days. So
thank you for doing what you do. And Mark, why don't you tell us a little about your background and your history with the organization?
Sure. I've been a police officer with the City of Novi Police Department now for a little over 17 years. I spent 10 and a half years as a detective assigned to the juvenile section, where I have worked with a lot of kids who have been victims of abuse and neglect. And some of the kids, Chief, do have autism. And one of the things is the awareness part of it and speaking with them, that they are very literal, and you have to use a special way of communicating with them to get the information. And Scott recently brought a wealth of information here to our department to give us a better understanding of the kids and the dynamics with children who have autism. So when we interact with them, we can do a better job.
And I want to thank you as well for coordinating, and I know Scott's been here a couple other times, and he's going to do another training session tonight for some of our other police officers and firefighters. So
that's correct.
Can you tell us what's the mission of the Autism Alliance of Michigan? What are they about, and what's their goal?
Well, the Autism Alliance of Michigan is a statewide advocacy group, a nonprofit. I'm the safety initiative. I conduct the trainings around the state. Anthony Ianni, a former Michigan State basketball player that has autism, is also part of the safety initiative. Anthony's on a statewide tour right now of middle schools and high schools teaching students about bullying and autism. And in our trainings with police and fire, we talk about how that goes together quite a bit. So we're the safety initiative. We conduct a lot of trainings throughout the state on anything from the insurance reform to the safety trainings for the police and fire, bus drivers, educators, and so on.
Okay, so for the general viewing public who may not have experienced or know anyone or have a family member with autism, what are we referring to what's the definition of what we're looking at as autism?
Autism is a neurologically based developmental disability. It affects a person's ability to communicate, socialize, and understand perspectives of others. And in plain English, like I like to tell the police officers, that it's a brain disorder. You're born with autism. There is no cure for autism. And the real tough thing for police officers and firefighters, a person with autism looks no different than you or I. And it's very hard for a police officer or firefighter who comes upon a call that may have to make a split-second decision to determine if this person has autism, and they are not misinterpreting their behaviors, that they're maybe intoxicated, they may be high on drugs, they may be a thief, and so on. So,
definitely. Now, I understand it's the fastest growing developmental disability in the United States?
That's correct. More physicians, more psychologists are being trained to diagnose. So there are many more diagnoses being made. But we also know the numbers are growing. 1 in every 88 American children born are on the autism spectrum. 1 in 54 boys. Boys are 5 times more likely than girls to have autism. And a new stat that came out last March, from 1 in 50 school-age children are on the autism spectrum. So if you have a 250 student elementary school in Novi, you're going to have at least 5 children on the spectrum.
Wow. And when you talk about the spectrum, what do we, is that like a range of severity of autism?
Yeah, what the autism spectrum is, you'll hear it called ASD for autism spectrum disorder. You'll hear it called the spectrum. Parents will say, my child's on the spectrum. What it is, the spectrum means it affects everybody differently. So you may have somebody on one hand who is very, very high functioning, which may have Asperger's, which is a very high functioning form of autism. They may lack social skills. Then you may have somebody on the other end who is very low functioning, who is nonverbal, may have never been potty trained, may need an aid their whole life. Then you have everybody in the middle. You'll hear the saying in the autism community, no two people are alike. If you've met one person with autism, you've only met one person.
Okay.
So that's what makes it really tough to identify people with autism.
Because there's a whole wide variety of ways to not only communicate, but also try to treat and assist.
Yes.
And Mark, I know with some of the individuals we have in our community who parents have reached out to us, and some of who we've dealt with because of minor issues. You were instrumental in working with our communication system in setting up a flag, so if we get a call from that home. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, Chief. What we're trying to encourage is community members to let us know if they have a family member who has autism, and then we can put that into our 911 system. So if they contact our department and tell us that their child or loved one, even an adult with autism, is now missing, we can give rapid response. We can check our water sources. We can check our high traffic areas. We can get officers to those scenes, because one thing we've learned through the assistance of Scott is that their sense of awareness of safety is not the same as what it would be for you and I. And that's really critical for us to know and get our fire department there on scene too as well, and community aid if need be. So.
And if individuals want to let us know, they can contact the Novi Police Department. They can go to cityofnovi.org and send in a request, and we can make that happen.
Absolutely, sir.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. Scott, you said earlier there's no cure for it. Are there medications that maybe help someone who has autism, depending on where they're at in the spectrum?
No, there is no specific medication for autism, but a person with autism may have other diagnoses, such as seizures, and they may take medication for those other diagnoses. But there is no specific medication for autism.
I notice you have a sticker over here. Is that something that we utilize, or is that a DVD, or?
This is actually a magnet.
Okay.
What we do, we encourage the families to put magnets or clings on their homes and on their motor vehicles. And what this is to alert emergency responders if the police or fire would respond to a motor vehicle accident, that they may have somebody in the car with autism, that they have to use additional measures, such as never leaving the person with autism alone out at an accident scene, fearing that they may run out into the middle of traffic and get hit by a car. Responding to the home, a structure fire. Right away, police officers and firefighters know that there may be somebody inside that house with autism. What's nice about what also Novi is doing to be proactive is flagging the residents in the 911 system. We encourage the families during our family trainings to do this, and that is to help emergency responders on no matter what type of call they make to that residence. There may be somebody with autism, and they may have to use extra precautions.
And I was sharing with you prior to the taping today is that we've actually had families reach out to us, because I think the whole awareness as a result of your organization is growing, and family members now know that it's easier to reach out to local law enforcement or responding police and fire and ask that. And one of the community members was actually very surprised that we'd already had a couple rounds of training for our first responders already, yet we're committed to do many more.
Right, right. Novi, the city of Novi Police and Fire have been very proactive in this. Many departments around the state are catching on the trainings. We've trained over 7,000 people now in the state of Michigan, with well over 5,000 emergency responders. So it's important for the emergency responders to understand autism and understand some of their characteristics and some of the things that may put them in danger.
Well, that's great information, not only for us, but also for our viewing audience. And speaking of our viewing audience, we're going to take a real quick break, and we'll be coming back to Behind the Badge.
Hey, look at Mommy.
Maybe the light hurts his eyes.
Maybe she's just not hungry. Look. Maybe it's a phase.
Avoiding eye contact is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today.
I think someone at my friend's school has this thing called autism. My friend's brother's son has autism. My neighbor's son has autism. My son has autism.
Autism is getting closer to home. Today, 1 in 88 children is diagnosed with autism. That's a 1,000% increase in the last 40 years. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Welcome back to Behind the Badge. We continue to be joined with Sergeant Mark Boody of the Novi Police Department and Scott Schuelke. Scott, real quickly, I understand that there's no differentiation. We can't really identify and tell who has autism. What are some of the characteristics that first responders can look for if they think they're dealing with someone with autism?
Some of the characteristics are lack of eye contact. Many people with autism will not make eye contact with you. It's very hard for them. One of the first things we learn in police work is when somebody's not telling you the truth, they have a very hard time looking you in the eye. Well, you have to get by that with a person with autism. They may also rock back and forth while standing or seated. They may have some repetitive motions such as hand flapping and that also. There's also a term called echolalia where they will repeat back what you're saying to them. It's very common for them. If I would ask them to come here, they may say, come here. They're not being smart alecks to us. It's a very common characteristic. So these are some of the things we teach the officers to look for.
And just to maybe recap, and we touched a little bit on, why is this so important? Are we seeing more kids being diagnosed with this?
We are seeing more kids being diagnosed, but it's also the police officers and firefighters are getting the calls. People are misinterpreting their behaviors. They're calling in that they're intoxicated, they're high on drugs, or they're simply crazy. And the police officers and firefighters are getting sent to these scenes, and they have to make a quick judgment on this. So some of these characteristics we're teaching them on how to identify people with autism really work. So the one thing we never want to do is mishandle a person with autism. You know, that nobody wants to do that.
And Mark, I know in your previous line of work as an investigator in juvenile services, you had a couple cases involving young people with autism.
I did, yeah. And the important thing there, and listening to Scott and his training, is the fact that they're very literal. Well, simply put, kids under the age of 10 are too as well. And in Michigan, we do have a forensic interviewing protocol that we do follow, which is a open-ended, non-suggestive, non-leading way to interview children, and it works very effectively with children who have autism or any type of disability for that matter, to be able to use their words, understand them, clarify them, and then we can communicate them with their language.
Excellent. And I know with the initiative we've spoke to in the first segment about letting us know if a person has a disability in their home. Mm-hmm. How do we go about educating the viewing public on that if they want to sign up for that?
Absolutely. Chief, what we have here is a couple different forms that we're going to have online at the city website where community members, and this just goes also beyond any individual who has autism, any disability for that matter, to let us know. So if a loved one comes up missing, if there's any other type of medical emergency, we can give the proper response to them. Also, they can stop by the station and pick up these forms as well. Obviously, too, we also have Ask the Sergeant ability online, so if any community member has any type of specific questions about training that we've received or any further information as far as other programs, we can also assist them with that as well.
That's excellent. And I know, Scott, you've been working with the Lieutenant Governor, and he's a huge proponent of advocating for not only children with disabilities, adults with disabilities, and really I know he's taking a long, hard look at some of the committee work that he's doing in terms of the whole mental health issues with everyone nowadays, and that's just got to be an outstanding achievement for you to be working with folks like that.
Oh, it's very rewarding. A lot of times these families don't know where to turn. They live a different life than the normal family lives. They have children that don't sleep for days at a time. They're up all night, sleep deprivation. They're worried about their child running out of the house or dangerously wandering from school during the day. It's a whole different life. They have a whole different set of worries than the average family has.
Yeah, you mentioned wandering, and that's a big issue with young people or even adults, I'm assuming, with autism. Why is that so important for us to understand that?
Well, the one thing, we're going to be the first ones getting the call.
Yeah.
Wandering is the leading call for law enforcement for people with autism. The actual term is called elopement. Many people with autism dangerously wander. The families go to great depths to keep their loved ones safe. Many times a person with autism will wander to a specific location, which may be their favorite location, such as an ice cream parlor or a water park. People with autism, many of them are drawn to water. Drowning is one of the leading causes of death for autism, and it usually comes from dangerous wandering. So when the emergency responders learn that they have a child that has wandered away, that has autism, right away the first thing they need to do is send the other officers to check their water sources.
Okay. And what other safeguards? What other safeguards and recommendations do you have for families that might be dealing with this?
Well, first of all, the families need to locate and secure their home. Okay, they might have to add additional deadbolts to their home, inexpensive door alarms, which you can pick up at Walmart, Radio Shack, Home Depot, and so on. But they also need to educate those around them, being their neighbors. You know, if my child or son walks out in the middle of the street, is leaving home, please help out. Please stop him or her. You know, they have autism. Educate their school, educate their bus driver, educate everybody around them. Also, fill out the emergency contact cards that Sergeant Boody was talking about and bring those to your local police and fire department with a picture. And you know what? If the Novi Police Department's responding back from a call at 3 o'clock in the morning and they see your son walking down the middle of the street, not fearing that he's going to be hit by cars, maybe they have already seen this emergency contact card up in the lineup room at the Novi Police Department.
Great.
They'll have a heads up.
And I'm assuming I haven't had the opportunity to be able to sit in on one of your training, but I'm assuming you're teaching these officers some of the ways to approach people too, in terms of if they ran across somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, we are teaching them. The biggest thing is patience. Many police officers and firefighters have to show a great deal of patience on every call, but it's especially true with a person with autism. You have to talk to them. You have to be calm. Try communicating with them. We tell the police officers and firefighters they may be nonverbal, but it doesn't mean they don't understand what you're saying to them.
Right.
So a lot of it's being calm. We encourage them not to touch them in any way. Don't even do a slight touch on the shoulder and say how things are doing. The only time we tell them to even touch them is for their own safety or someone else's.
Okay. Any advice for the general viewing public that might help them? Maybe some of the same things you just talked about not touching, but any general advice for the viewing public on if they see somebody, what should they do? How should they communicate it? Or is it just basically call 911 or call law enforcement?
Well, if they see someone in danger walking down, please help out. You know, approach them. I realize people got to do what they got to do to pull somebody out of the middle of the street. Also call 911. Have somebody call 911 to get the police and fire started. But communicate with them. Talk to them. Remain calm. Help them out. You know, you may have to walk out in the middle of the street and escort them out of the middle of the street. You may have to go hands-on. But please help.
Right, right. Well, Scott, I want to certainly thank you for coming and taping with us today, but I also want to thank you for the message that you're spreading. I mean, there's not a week goes by that I don't see another training announcement that the Autism Alliance of Michigan's putting on, and I know you in your new role, now retired from law enforcement, but you're training your colleagues from your first career, and that's admirable, and I really appreciate you taking this message.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's very, very rewarding, and the one thing I want to let the audience know that the police and fire are being very proactive in these trainings. It's really gone over well. Novi has been very phenomenal. Most of Southeast Michigan, the police and fire departments
Well, if you ever need a place to host a class or anything like that, we have a police training center and a fire training center, and they're available to you at no charge whenever you want to host a class. So
great, thanks, Chief.
Happy to have you. And Sergeant Boody, thank you for your leadership. Very proud of you and your growth and development after several years in our investigations section, where you were not only working with individuals with autism, but you were one of the leading experts in child sexual and physical abuse. And now we're proud of you and happy for your new accomplishment in our Uniform Operations Division. And thank you for helping coordinate the trainings with Scott and making sure our men and women are more informed.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank you, the viewing public, for tuning in to Behind the Badge. And please, if you ever need any type of assistance from the Novi Police and Fire Departments, do not hesitate to contact us day or night. We're here to serve you all. And in the meantime, continue to watch Novi Television.